Okay, finally, I, David, believe in the grand unknown. Whatever the power is that whatever the power is that controls whether things will be cosmically ordered for a time or simply chaotic. You see, I don't believe in one without the other, which I guess means I don't believe in much at all. But at least there's a little balance there. I don't have a lot of faith exactly, but I know I've got my best friend with me and my best role model, and you can bet I'm not letting him go. Not when he can empower me to do things like this. One thing you should know is that recently I've been reading a lot of books Herman has always talked about. I've been sort of educating myself here for what feels like the first time in a lot of ways, despite the fact that I've been in school my whole life. I just read The Naked Ape and The Virtue of Selfishness, cover to cover in the same week. As you might imagine, my mind is still recovering. If I don't make sense to you, try doing the same thing, then see how you feel. On a personal note, I've decided I want to tell my own story. I want to explain a few experiences that meant a lot to me, to say the least. Experiences that have been good with a capital G, to borrow Herman's term. I want something in my hand in which I can find some of that good. Something all about my life and what makes it worth living. Maybe I can find a little proof for myself. I don't know if I truly need to prove anything, but I don't know. Maybe I do. Maybe something about not being useless. What my story will be is me. This is me now, and later it'll be me also. There won't be any cause for me to feel ashamed or embarrassed about anything. I promise you. Because I don't have any shame, not an ounce of it, not a drop, not anymore. I don't want to hide anything, and I have nothing to hide. That doesn't mean, though, that I intend to tell everything. I don't have the time or the patience for that. Remembrance of things boring. Who would? And who would care if I did? However, my story will probably have to be a fictional account of me. I'll have to call it that. There won't be many fictional events in it, though. There won't be many fictional events in it, though, due partly to the fact that I don't know any that haven't been told in some way or another, but mainly due to the fact that they just don't interest me. Herman wrote somewhere that fictional events sort of presuppose a lack of contentment. And he's right. And that's a sad fictional story in the making right there. I mean, if I made up a lot of stuff about my life, you might expect that I was some kind of serious loser. You'd probably assume that I was ashamed of the real story, which I used to be, but which I now realize is only stupid. I'll start with a name. I'll need a new one. I'll start with a name. I'll need a new one. Maybe Lance. Lance Windswept. The fictional name Herman made up for a blonde windsurfing pseudo-guru who lives on some South Pacific island with his surfboards and his native girlfriend whose blood will help tan their kids better than Lance was able to tan himself. He's the 25-year-old sandy legend of his own time, a legend of his own devising. He's a hero to all the American guys that visit his island. But here's the catch. He pretends that he doesn't care about his reputation. And he's not too smart. Probably a high school dropout who sends his girlfriend to the bank because he hasn't figured out the exchange rates yet. And he looks good, though mostly because his name is Lance. But I can't use Lance for most of the above reasons. So my story is going to be all about growing up and getting by. It's going to be about how we learn and how we mature and how we appreciate learning how to learn and appreciate. That makes sense? Let me read that again. It's going to be about how we learn and how we mature and how we appreciate learning how to learn and how we appreciate learning how to learn and appreciate. At the least, it's going to be about how I did these things. In this is my love for my life. Sometimes it can be painful, but even then, like right now, it's not all that bad. Anyway, it's killing me to see dead, wasted time these days. time poorly spent, especially when it's my own time. And by this, I don't mean time not spent earning money or learning how to rock climb. First of all, I think rock climbing is about as exciting as trying to make fire all over again by rubbing sticks together. I mean, where are they going? And why do they insist on going there so slowly? Secondly, what I'm really talking about is time not spent working on being happy, on a realization of my dreams, and on the dreams themselves. So we grow up and we learn about some things, and some of them are good, and we learn to look out for them. We learn to look out for them. Instinctually, we start valuing the good things, and we talk about them. We form values. Many of them are taught to us, but eventually we make our own decisions, and the values we develop are totally our own. This is the instinctual part. We feel the tug of adulthood, and we begin to make some decisions. I'm not exactly sure when this happens, but somewhere along the way we figure out a few of the things we care about, things that make us happy, things that are cool and good. And we do this for survival. We start by protecting our interests. We start by protecting our own interests, and then we branch out once we've developed confidence in our abilities. As all goes well, we begin to value the behavior that looks after itself, behavior that gives us some assurance that our interests are being looked after in a rational, just world. Likewise, it becomes obvious what kind of behavior doesn't do us any good. Read that again. Likewise, it becomes obvious what kind of behavior doesn't do any good. As people, we've been evolving this great capacity for learning and understanding. It's the other animals who are more threatened with extinction. Didn't the last 50 years teach us something about how we're not quite stupid enough to wipe ourselves out? Didn't the last 50 years teach us something about how we're not quite stupid enough to wipe ourselves out? Or maybe it didn't. I guess we'll see. Before I get carried away, let me just say that this isn't at all about the world, nor is it really about America either. This is about me and what I've figured out and what I haven't figured out also. It's about trying to come up with a few rules to live by. And it's about coming to terms with a totally emotional life that doesn't always spell things out clearly for me. In the past, my emotions have frequently overwhelmed my ability to reason things effectively. The context is my whole life up to now. I'll probably get into it a bit so I can get a better handle on when, where, and how I talked myself out of the darkness. When, where, and how I talked myself out of the darkness. I know I've done some of this already, but I also know I can't take a lot of credit for helping myself. Dave is not a self-made man. But anyway, it's all added up to a pretty okay feeling. And the good feeling comes from understanding, and understanding comes from talking things through, even from just trying to sometimes. Understanding can simply make you happier, and it can also make you more appreciative of being human. What I'm saying is this: certain things give me huge pleasure. I like these things, and even more, I like my ability to like these things. That's all. But there's more. Wherever possible, or whenever I remember to do it, I want to explain the reasons for why certain things have made me happy, and probably why they continue to. But for the most part, I consider this a premise more than anything else. I've already said, I think feeling good comes from the realization of my personal values in one form or another. So I guess what I'm really aiming to do is figure out how and why I came to value, how I came to love the things I do. Why are the cool things cool to me? I read in the Romantic Manifesto that we all have a sense of life, and that each of our little quests for happiness are searches for the reflection of this feeling in other people. And we look for the reflection everywhere. If not in people, then in stuff like works of art. When we see our sense of life in others, whether we know what it is ourselves, we respond to the common feeling, the mutual understanding, and then we form bonds. If our personal take on life is gloomy and depressing, we may enjoy having other cynics in our company. Ideally, though, we'll see our gloom in contrast to those around us who seem to be a bit happier. And they are happier because they have a positive attitude we can learn from. If we keep a real good feeling about the stuff going on around us, or at least in our ability to do something about what's going on around us, then we'll have a good sense of things. And when we see positive energy in other people, they'll be automatically qualified to be good friends of ours. And we should embrace them. We should embrace them. We might feel a bit weak in a way, but we feel a bit better for running into someone who impresses us, maybe even more than we impress ourselves.